This is Radio Hereford FC, the home of the Bulls.
Hello and welcome back to the latest edition of the Bullscast with me, George Holloway. It was a terrific night for Hereford on Tuesday as they hit 5 past Chester at Sixways. We'll take a look at all the goals and reflect on Aaron Downs' first week in charge before previewing the upcoming away trips to Alfreton and Scarborough. As always, I'm joined by Keith Hall. Keith, thanks for joining me to talk through what was a brilliant night on Tuesday, a 5-2 victory for the Bulls over Chester.
Yeah, bounced back after that Scarborough reverse at Redditch. It felt like Hereford were certainly playing at a lower graded club, and it felt like, very much for me anyway, it felt like an away game at Redditch. It was drab and dismal, and that was just the weather. And, not necessarily the football. I thought Scarborough controlled the game pretty well throughout. And Hereford, on that occasion, didn't really carve out too many great opportunities apart from that miss from Andy Williams, which at that stage would have pepped Hereford up, I think.
Yeah, Scarborough certainly more clinical and ruthless than the Bulls on Saturday. And only 5 minutes in on Tuesday night, Keith, Chester scored their opening goal thanks to Finlay Shrimpton, who was unmarked inside the Bulls box. And many of us would have been fearing the worst after Saturday's result.
Yeah, it was a question. I'm sure everybody in the crowd, apart from the Chester fans, would have been saying, oh, here we go again. It's another early goal, conceding first within the first 10 minutes of a match. We've got a fight on our hands. Are we going to do anything at all? And then came the equaliser, and thereafter a bit of a transformation. And Hereford played some really good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin Donowa was the man who grabbed the equaliser for Hereford on 20 minutes. And he came into the side, Keith, just before kickoff for the injured Gus Mafuta and certainly made an impact.
Yeah, because we were up on top of the roof in the gantry, so we were away from anyone. So we were relying really on social media feeds to get the team sheets, etc. And certainly we'd got Gus Mafuta down as a start. So we were wondering why on earth there was a number 12 shirt on the pitch. We obviously knew that was Justin Donowa, but for a while up in the commentary position, we were wondering who had started, or who had dropped out rather, and we went from there. But it was a fortuitous goal in many ways. I think Chester would look at that. They let the ball bounce, central defenders, and there was Justin Donowa. We know he's quick off the mark, quite a pacey player, so he was able to get there first and then calmly just slot it in. I'm sure, he was really grateful to be in that position.
The Bulls alert to take advantage of that defensive mix-up from Chester. And then things got even better for Hereford, Keith, 10 minutes later when Cormac Daly put them in front, thanks to, in no small part, George Munday, who pulled the ball back from the byline.
Yeah, it was a good move actually for Hereford down that right-hand side. As you say, it came in to Munday. And he managed to turn his man and whip that cross across the penalty box, and there was Daly to fire it home at the far post. And I thought it was a well-constructed goal, and good to see Hereford turning it around within, 25 minutes or so.
And it's something we've mentioned a few times over the last week, Keith, a feature of Aaron Downs' side in the opening 3 games, midfielders, or any Bulls player for that matter, making runs into the box.
Yeah, I go back to Paul Caddis saying it throughout the season, just wasn't able to generate it from the Hereford squad. Talking about box entries, you've got to get in there, dribble, whatever. If you're not in a position to do that, make sure you try and get a cross into the penalty area, and hopefully there'll be somebody on the end of it gambling, or if it's an accurate ball, it's on the plate for you. So yeah, very impressed from Hereford. Daly, obviously the catalyst, he got the man of the match award. But interesting debut for Harrison Sona in midfield. He's known to Aaron Downs, and he's brought him in as if to say, look, you've had a bit of a setback, but I'm going to try and restore your confidence. Have faith in your own ability, and get competitive in the National League North, and you can see where your career goes from there. Perhaps he needs to get competitive in terms of tackling, but I thought his overall play was very good from box to box.
There was a further twist in what was a dramatic first half at Sixways when Seals equalised from the spot just 5 minutes later when Howkins pulled back Dylan Motley-Henry inside the box. And that allowed Connor Woods-Keith to step up and convert.
Yeah, just a lead for 5 minutes, wasn't it, before it was 2-2 with that penalty. I don't think there was any doubt about that. Looked a real foul to me from Carl Howkins cutting across there. So coolly dispatched by Woods to make it 2-2. But it was getting to be a really exciting first half. 4 goals at that stage. And there was more to come, wasn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. The scoring for the first half wasn't done there. Cormac Daly involved again, pulling the ball back, this time for Keziah Martin.
Yeah, he whipped it onto his left foot, didn't he, Keziah Martin, and blasted it into the back of the net. And the crowd erupted in the Cecil Duckworth stand, realising that, Hereford now going to be on the front foot, seemingly. 3-2 up just before half-time. Great time to score a goal and gave everybody a lift inside the stadium, apart from the Chester supporters down below us.
Callum McIntyre looking for a response in the second half, Keith, and they were inches away from equalising in the early stages.
Yeah, there was one that seemed to hit, was it the crossbar or the post? I'm not quite sure still, having looked at the highlights, but that was as close as they came, really. In the second 45, I think Hereford had much the better of it in the second half, and I think were really well worth the victory. I've been talking to some supporters saying for them it was the most entertaining match they've seen for months and months. And Hereford with their shooting boots on throughout the game, getting shots in, seemed to have got that enthusiasm and energy back from the new signings coming in, expressing themselves, a lot of spirit that Aaron Downs was talking about. It was all for everyone to see. And it's rubbing off on the players that have been here all season, which is great to see.
Chester saw plenty of possession in that second half, but struggled to carve out any clear-cut opportunities, and Hereford extended their lead with 30 minutes to go when they hit Chester on the break through Cormac Daly.
Yeah, another good run, wasn't it, from Daly, squirming into the penalty area, twisting and turning, getting the shot in. It was saved by Bobby Jones initially, but then he followed up to make absolutely sure. And I think at that stage, at 4-2, there'd be some supporters were saying, oh, well, it's still going to be a quarter of an hour or something like that to go, so don't rule it out a Chester fight back. But up in the commentary position, I think we both felt Hereford were at that stage not necessarily home and hosed, but we felt we're doing more than enough to get the 3 points on the night.
Callum McIntyre must have been tearing his hair out on 80 minutes when another error at the back, this time from Nathan Woodthorpe, allowed Lawson Diath to pick up the ball on the edge of the final third. He slid through George Munday, Keith, who remained calm and composed, and slotted the ball underneath Bobby Jones.
Yeah, I think Woodthorpe came on to replace the experienced Kevin Roberts, but as you say, it was an individual error, a terrible pass across the middle of the Chester half, and Hereford pounced on it and went on to convert through Monday, make it 5-2, and it was definitely game over at that stage, and the celebration started amongst the Hereford fans. So within a week, Hereford had gone from 11 points from safety, and they're now just 5 points from safety. So, things are really turning around, and let's hope that can continue. Another good point is that because it was virtually a full programme last night, it's not as though Hereford were playing one of their catch-up matches, if you like. So they've still got that gap, games in hand on the clubs around them. They haven't sort of used one up. So it's now, as I say, 5 points. And yet they've still got these games in hand. But, remains to be seen if they can continue this momentum. But it was really enthusiastic. And I think everybody came out of the ground with smiles on their faces, probably for the first time in ages. And we'll be looking now to see Hereford climb up that table.
Great scenes at full time. Brilliant 5-2 victory at home to Chester, which, as you say, claws points back in their fight for survival. 2 wins from 3, Keith, in Aaron Downs' first week in charge.
Overall, I think Hereford found the narrow pitch at Redditch not necessarily to their liking. There was something like 10 or 12 yards difference between that and Sixways. So Hereford couldn't be expansive. They got Daly on one side and Donovan down the other flank. And that really exposed Chester at times. They probably wouldn't have been able to do that had they been playing at the Valley Stadium. So it's 2 wins from 2 at Sixways. There were crowd calls at the end. Can we play you every week, which is against Chester, obviously, and can we play here every week? I don't think the board of directors would actually fancy that at all, because financially it would be a disaster. But those that were there, they could see the way Hereford were playing and using pace as well, and it undid Chester time after time, really.
Yeah, let's focus in on some of the star performers from Tuesday night, in particular George Munday and Cormac Daly. How crucial have they been to the ball squad, and how important is it that they can provide an outlet in behind opposition's defence with their pace and running power?
Well, in a way, I like the fact that George Munday was up there on his own. He had the responsibility, because we'd already seen in the previous games that he's a player who's very committed and he will not give up. He did chase what you would think is a lost cause, but he'll still get in there. He'll try and retain possession. If it bounces off him, it ricochets off him, hopefully the midfield players are in somewhere near around him to pounce on it and create something. So he's been a real catalyst, I feel, up front. And as we keep saying, Daly down the wing, is he excites you every time he gets the ball. You think something's going to happen. A different type of player to Yusufu Cisse, but again, Cisse was a similar spirit in that he would take players on. He wouldn't always do it, but he would take them on, and he chipped in with goals. Obviously, we haven't seen that from Daly until necessarily last night with those 2 goals that he scored. Cisse is still banging them in for Spalding, I think, in the Southern League Premier Division Central, top of the table. But it's great to see somebody in a Hereford shirt being prepared and being given the licence to take people on and cause all sorts of problems. And I think virtually every away supporter that I've spoken to has been impressed with him since they've seen him up against them, as it were.
Aaron Downs saying after the match that he's in constant conversation with Nottingham Forest. He's a player that you just want to keep at Edgar Street for as long as possible.
Well, I'm sure they're really happy with the minutes that he's getting on the pitch, the experience that he's getting, toughening him up in a way. According to Aaron Downs, obviously, just 18, 19, he's still got a lot to learn. So what a good competitive league to do it in. Whether he can do it on Mudbath, maybe at Alfreton at the weekend, and a different style of opponent who'll be in quickly on him and will probably try to deny him as much space as possible, and there'll be some really heavy challenges coming in on Daly, because he's going to have that reputation now that he is an outlet for Hereford, and he'll be targeted, I'm sure, in the weeks and months to come. Fingers crossed a deal can be done with Nottingham Forest to make sure that Daly can excite the Hereford fans from now until the end of the campaign.
Harry Tustin not in the matchday squad on Tuesday night, of course, against Chester. New signing Harrison Sonner, you've already talked about, Keith, but his fellow new signing, who came in on the same night, Joseph James, came off the bench.
Well, it's difficult to say, obviously. First impressions, looks a comfortable player, composed on the ball, is a right-sided defender. He will give competition and an option in case Skinner gets 2 yellow cards maybe in a game, or gets an injury between now and the end of the season. So I think Aaron Downs is looking at that as well, as to say, what's the flexibility? Can you play in a couple of different positions just in case? A lot of games to fit in such a short space of time, and I'm sure he'll fit in really nicely.
So 3 home games to start off with for Aaron Downs. Keith, how would you assess his first week in charge?
Well, he's obviously lifted things through the squad, isn't he? Alongside Harry Pell, I'm sure Harry has had his part to play within the dressing room. Senior players seem to be reacting to it. So I see a lot more exuberance and excitement, expression on their faces. They want to do the best that they possibly can. I'm not saying they were restricted before in any shape or form, but they just seem to be ground down a little bit, weight on their shoulders. But all of a sudden, with these, I can't really call them kids, but the youngsters coming in, and they haven't got any thoughts about it, about what's been happening in the past. They weren't involved. They're just loving playing football, and is competitive in front of a fairly decent crowd, albeit they've been at Sixways and Redditch, so that they can express themselves in front of a crowd, which they may not do in Cheltenham youth teams or under 21 sides.
There was a full fixture list of National League North action on Tuesday night. Alfreton beat Scarborough by 2-1. There was good news for Hereford as relegation rivals Peterborough Sports lost 4-1 at Bedford. It finished Buxton 1, Kings Lynn 2, Kidderminster 4, Marine 0, Leamington 1, Merthyr 2. Macclesfield were thrashed 4-1 at home by Fylde. It finished Oxford City 0, Telford 0, Radcliffe 1, Southport 2. South Shields beat Worksop by 3-1. Spennymoor 1, Chorley 0, while Darlington picked up 3 points at Curzon Ashton, beating the Nash by 2-1. That all means Fylde remain top of the table with 72 points after 5 straight wins. South Shields are 1 point further behind in second, while there's now an 8-point gap to Merthyr in third on 63, having played 3 games more than the top 2 teams. Down at the other end of the table, Leamington remain bottom on 19, having suffered 5 straight defeats. Hereford are in 23rd on 28 points, but have narrowed the gap to Peterborough Sports in 20th to 5. It's Alfreton away this Saturday for Hereford, who are in good form and had an incredible comeback victory against Merthyr on Saturday. An entirely different challenge, Keith.
It is. It's going to be one of those sort of robust, competitive, tough encounters to play on. Again, it's one of those narrower pitches where long throws come into effect, and in Adam Lund, Alfreton down the years have got a real exponent of those. They come in at quite a velocity, actually, Lund's throws, and that can throw you a little bit. They're not necessarily loopy throws that you can see coming in, so you have to react to them. And Jake Buxton, Alfreton have improved recently. They've won the last 2 games on the spin. As you say, home to Merthyr 3-2, and they beat Scarborough 2-1. Counter that, though, they've only kept 2 clean sheets at home all season, and they hardly score a home goal. Just 16 goals in 14 home matches. So you know it's going to be tight. Having said all of that about the lack of goals, they've still won 6 games at what I still call the Impact Arena. It's a Solana stadium, apparently, these days. But, they have still won 6 and lost 5. If they don't score at home, you've got a chance, because virtually every team that's gone there and stopped them scoring, Darlington, South Shields, Chester, Fylde and Bedford, have come away with victories at the Impact Stadium. Hopefully Hereford being on a high, and hopefully there'll be support as well. It's not one of the longest games to travel to, and I really hope that, given that spirit from the team on Tuesday, that'll be mirrored now by the supporters, trying to encourage the players at a place where Hereford rarely get a result. I've been looking, unfortunately, a bit of a downer. I've been looking at the stats. The last time Hereford won at the Impact, or we'll call it what you like, was in 2012, when Hereford United won 3-0. Marley Watkins, Sean Canham and Tom Nichols with the goals way back when. And I remember even further back, an FA Cup 4th qualifying round replay in 2005. It was still a 1-1 draw, but Hereford did win in a penalty shootout. Craig Mawson was the Hereford goalkeeper. He saved 2 spot kicks. Tony James, Andy Williams, believe it or not, Graham Evans and Gia Power scored, and they all converted their spot kicks to win 4-3 on penalties. So rare wins for Hereford at Alfreton. Let's hope there's another this coming Saturday.
Alfreton sit just above Hereford in the table in 22nd, having played 30 games to Hereford's 28. Alfreton are on 32. Hereford are 4 points further behind. Relegation zone, Keith, is not the sort of place you've come to expect Alfreton to be in recent years.
No, they've been so resolute, so awkward to play against and competitive. Billy Heath was the manager, and then his teams used to go out there with his sort of hustle and bustle, let's put it that way. Dark arts are certainly going to be utilised. I'm absolutely convinced of that. But it's another challenge for Aaron Downs. He's used to it when he used to play for Chesterfield, of course. He probably used them to good effect himself. So, in a way, he'll be ready for it in that sense. get the messages out to the Hereford squad. And as I say, let's hope if it is a competitive battle, it's one in which Hereford can come out on top in.
Alfreton got a point away at Chester a couple of weeks ago on the 10th of February, so that's maybe an indicator of the sort of level Alfreton are at the moment. Where do we expect the threats from Alfreton to come from, Keith?
Well, I just brought Jack Goodman in from Mansfield on loan. Obviously, Jake Buxton is a former Mansfield defender. He's gone in as manager since last October. So that's a club that he feels he can deal with. And Goodman's had short spells at Basford United, Bradford Park Avenue and Peterborough Sports, incidentally. So he's had a little bit of experience in the National League North, only 20 years of age, and they'll be hoping, as far from an Alfreton perspective, that he can start scoring. And as I've already mentioned, Adam Lund, those really dangerous high-velocity long throws, they ping into the penalty area, and you've got to be on your mettle to get in the way of it. Make sure get the first touch. Otherwise, it can be deflected and go anywhere.
And Hereford are in a rather unusual position, Keith, of having to get used to grass again, having played the last 3 matches on artificial surface.
I'm sure it's not all grass up at Alfreton. I'm sure it's going to be very heavy up there. And it'll be a different challenge. As I say, that ball will stick. But the way George Monday plays, maybe he can help him. Because if the ball is fired up to him, he can bring it down a little bit quicker and keep it in close to him and then bring the midfield players into play. So although on the one side of it, that's going to be detrimental to any sort of free-flowing football, but maybe Hereford have got the assets within the squad now to be able to use different options and come out on top and hopefully, as I say, put in a really competitive performance, because they're going to need to be competitive, because Alfreton aren't going to be shy in flying in.
It should be a Hereford side full of confidence after the last 7 days. Let's see if they can get, or come away, should I say, from Derbyshire with 3 points. And then after, they have Scarborough away in the northeast, Keith, the following Tuesday at Bridlington, of course, and a chance to get revenge.
Well, let's hope so, isn't it? I've never been to the Bridlington ground. As you say, different from the old Flamingo Land Stadium on the 4G. I believe Scarborough will be going back to that artificial surface, a brand new one, ready for the start of next year, but it's not ready just yet, and they're going to have to complete the season up at Bridlington's ground. But they controlled the game at Redditch. I thought Alex Purver in midfield, central midfield, had a good game. Perhaps Hereford need to get closer to him. We mentioned in commentary, Harry Green is always a real threat. If you give him space, he only needs it once or twice in a game, and he will usually exploit it. And if you remember, he got down the left to get the cross in for Walker to score, the number 9, rushing in at the far post to knock it in. So, they are comfortable on the ball, Scarborough. Whether the surface up there really hinders them rather than it helps them, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. But it'd be nice to get revenge, wouldn't it? Usually, down the years, Hereford beat Scarborough at Edgar Street and then always lose up at Scarborough. So let's see if that can be completely turned around.
Scarborough are at home on Saturday to Macclesfield, Keith. That seems like a really big game in terms of the playoffs.
Yeah, in and around it, isn't it? You expect Macclesfield, perhaps with their FA Cup money, to really launch a late charge into the playoff positions, but it's not quite there yet as far as Mactown are concerned. But Scarborough will try and play their part. They've been in and around it. They had a little bit of a blip back in the festive period and the New Year. But as we saw with their performance against Hereford, don't really give too much away. So it's unlikely that Hereford will get another 5, but I'm sure we'd love it.
It's a Scarborough side who lost at Alfreton on Tuesday night.
Well, there we go. Is it a question of too many games in too short space of time? No, they are part-time. They're not a full-time setup. So much like Hereford, they've got to ring the changes. They've got to fully utilise the squad. And that's why I think Aaron Downs is making sure he's getting these players in that he knows as well. So he feels that if I bring a player in, I'm used to the style of player and the way that a player wants to react to me. and I can introduce him in certain games at certain times against opponents that I feel that particular player can exploit. So let's hope that continues, because so far it's been very, very good.
And final question, Keith. If you're Aaron Downs, after 2 wins from your first 3 games, and you've got 2 big away games coming up against Alfreton and Scarborough, what are your messages to the squad, and is it as you were?
Keep that enthusiasm going. You found it now. You know it. You've got the hard work within you. He knows that. Downs has seen Hereford games apparently, not just in the last couple of weeks, but followed Hereford to a degree, and therefore he knows what is needed as far as he is concerned to pep them up a little bit. He knows there's an ability there. It's a question of bringing it out through sheer hard work, which I'm not saying Hereford players weren't working hard before, but it's just a way of focusing that and getting the enthusiasm of these youngsters in. Has really caused ripples right through not only the players but the crowd as well, that they've reacted to them. They can see that they're really trying their hardest, and because they've got that energy, it's helping everybody out. And as he said, it is a collective effort. We're all got to play a part, whether you're on the terraces, in the seats, and whether you travel home or away. Each fan can contribute by just giving that player that little bit of extra support.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the podcast. We'll be back next week to review all of the action from the Alfreton and Scarborough games before looking ahead to Worksop Town. Until then, it's bye for now.
This is Radio Hereford FC, the home of the Bulls.